Picture this. It is early morning at the Park Hyatt Zurich. The streets outside are clean, quiet, and orderly. Banks are opening. Trams are running on time. Inside the hotel, everything feels controlled. Polished stone floors, soft lighting, almost no noise at all. It feels safe, efficient, predictable. We are here because Zurich has always been a symbol of financial stability. Neutral ground, global capital, discretion, order, and continuity. This is where systems are supposed to work quietly, without drama. And that is exactly why this location matters today. I am Charlie Graham. I look at systems and how they behave under pressure. And welcome to Finance Frontier, part of the Finance Frontier AI Podcast Network.
When you sit in a place like this, nothing feels urgent. There are no flashing signals, no visible stress. Everything suggests competence and control. And that feeling is powerful because it shapes how people interpret risk. Most structural shifts in finance do not announce themselves with headlines. They begin as subtle strain inside institutions that were designed for a different era, a slower pace, fewer connections, more human judgment.
This is where people get comfortable. When the system looks this calm, the assumption is that risk has gone down, that stability has been earned. But calm does not mean the pressure is gone. It usually means it has been moved.
So calm is not evidence of safety. It is just the absence of noise.
Exactly. In modern financial systems, risk does not disappear when volatility drops or markets behave. It migrates. It leaves the places we are used to watching and settles into areas that are harder to see, harder to measure, and easier to ignore. This episode is not about predicting crashes or timing markets. It is about understanding movement, about learning how stress flows through a system when everything on the surface looks stable and well-managed.
Because the most dangerous periods are not the chaotic ones. They are the convincing ones. The moments when everything feels fine, and that calm becomes the story people trust.
The calm is the trap.
And before we can talk about where risk goes, we need to be precise about what we mean by risk in the first place. Because if we do not define that clearly, everything that follows will be misunderstood. So in the next segment, we are going to slow down and answer one foundational question. What do we actually mean by risk in modern finance? Before we go any further, we need to be precise, because most confusion around risk starts with definition. When people hear the word risk, they usually think about volatility, price swings, drawdowns, the chance of losing money on a trade. That is not what we mean here.
So this is not about portfolio risk or hedging mechanics. It is something deeper.
Exactly. In this episode, risk means systemic stress. Pressure inside a system that must exist somewhere at all times. And that leads to a rule that governs everything we are about to discuss. Risk is conserved. It is never destroyed. It is only relocated.
That is the part people resist. Because if risk cannot be eliminated, then calm periods are not victories. They are rearrangements. Someone is holding the pressure, even if nobody wants to talk about who that is.
When risk appears to fall, what is usually happening is not reduction. It is displacement. Stress leaves one layer of the system and shows up in another. Prices calm down. Volatility drops and confidence rises. But the underlying pressure has simply moved.
Like pressure in a closed container. If it drops in one place, it rises somewhere else.
That is a good way to think about it. Financial systems are not open environments where stress can just disappear. They are networks. When tension leaves the surface, it migrates into structure, into balance sheets, into incentives, into technology, into infrastructure.
And that is why the most dangerous periods rarely feel dangerous. Because the signals people trust are quiet. Prices behave. Models look stable. And everyone assumes the system has become safer when it has really become more sensitive.
There is one more distinction that matters here. Risk transfer versus risk migration. Risk transfer is intentional. Hedging, insurance, derivatives. Someone knowingly takes risk from someone else.
And migration is different. Nobody is in control. The system pushes stress into places that are harder to see.
Exactly. Risk migration is structural. It happens because of how the system is built, not because anyone chose it. And when stress migrates this way, it often ends up in areas that are poorly measured, poorly understood, or politically inconvenient to acknowledge.
Which is why it stays there longer than it should. Nobody wants to be the one pointing at invisible pressure while everything looks fine.
Now that we are clear on what kind of risk we are talking about, we can move to the first layer where it tends to hide when calm sets in, the financial layer itself. In the next segment, we are going to look at what happens when risk stops showing up in prices and volatility, and why markets can look stable at the exact moment they are becoming more fragile. Now that we are clear on what we mean by risk, the first place most people expect to find it is in markets, prices, volatility, the visible signals we've been trained to trust. And when those signals look calm, the assumption is that risk has gone down.
But if risk is conserved, it cannot just disappear from prices without showing up somewhere else.
Exactly. Markets can look calm, not because stress is low, but because stress has been absorbed. Volatility gets suppressed, price movements become orderly, liquidity looks abundant, and that surface stability tells a very convincing story.
This is where people confuse smoothness with strength. Calm markets feel mature, controlled, like the system has finally learned how to behave. But what usually happens is leverage builds quietly underneath that calm.
When money is cheap and liquidity feels endless, risk does not announce itself with noise, it compresses. Positions crowd into the same trades. Balance sheets stretch without triggering alarms, and because nothing breaks immediately, confidence grows.
So stability itself becomes self-reinforcing. The calmer it looks, the more people lean into it.
Yes, and that leaning is what makes the system more sensitive, not more resilient. Traditional risk metrics struggle here because they were designed for a world where stress showed up as sudden price moves. They are much less effective when stress shows up as excess confidence.
Low volatility does not mean low risk. It often means risk has been warehoused somewhere that does not move prices until it absolutely has to. And by the time prices react, the damage is already done.
This is why calm periods are so misleading. The absence of visible stress does not mean the system is healthy. It means the system is holding stress internally, in leverage, in assumptions, in interconnected exposures that do not matter until they suddenly do.
And when markets finally move, that move is not the cause, it is the symptom.
Exactly. Fragility does not announce itself while it is building, it accumulates quietly. And the longer calm persists, the more convincing the illusion becomes.
Which raises the next question. If this kind of hidden buildup is so dangerous, why does it keep happening? Why do systems allow it to persist?
To answer that, we need to step away from prices and look at something deeper than markets, incentives and power. That is where risk migration stops being accidental and starts being structural. If hidden risk is so dangerous, the obvious question is why systems allow it to persist. The answer is not ignorance. It is incentives. Modern financial systems are very good at rewarding short-term calm and very bad at pricing long-term fragility.
So the system is not failing by accident. It is behaving as designed.
Exactly. Stability is rewarded, smooth performance is rewarded, avoiding visible problems is rewarded, and pointing to invisible pressure carries almost no upside and a lot of career risk.
This is where power enters the picture. When gains are private and losses can be socialized later, calm becomes extremely valuable, not because it is safe, but because it buys time.
Institutions that benefit from leverage and scale have strong incentives to keep risk off the surface. As long as prices behave, as long as nothing breaks publicly, the system can continue to expand.
And the moment someone tries to slow that expansion, they look like the problem.
Yes, the person who points out structural stress during calm periods is often seen as overly cautious or out of touch. The system prefers reassuring narratives over uncomfortable truths.
Which means risk does not just migrate naturally. It is pushed away from places that trigger alarms and into places that do not. Balance sheets, incentive structures, complexity itself.
This is why fragility can grow even as governance frameworks appear stronger. Rules are followed, reports are filed, models are updated, and yet the system becomes more sensitive because incentives favor continuity over resilience.
So calm is not neutral. It is politically useful.
Exactly. Calm protects careers. Calm protects institutions. Calm protects narratives. And as long as calm holds, the cost of hidden risk belongs to the future, not the present.
Which brings us to the next layer, technology. Because acceleration does not just move faster than oversight, it actively reshapes where risk can hide.
In the next segment, we're going to look at how AI and automation compress time, smooth signals, and make unstable systems look deceptively efficient. Technology changes how risk behaves by changing how fast systems move, and nothing has accelerated modern finance more than automation and AI. Faster execution, faster decision cycles, faster feedback. On the surface, this looks like progress. In reality, it changes where instability can hide.
Because speed does not eliminate stress, it just gives it less time to surface.
Exactly. When systems operate faster than human comprehension, errors do not announce themselves gradually. They accumulate silently. Feedback loops tighten. Small distortions compound before anyone has time to question the assumptions behind them.
This is the dangerous illusion of efficiency. Faster systems look smoother, less friction, fewer visible mistakes. But that smoothness often comes from removing pauses where humans used to notice something felt wrong.
AI systems are very good at optimizing within a defined objective. They are much less capable of questioning whether that objective still makes sense under new conditions. And when those systems interact, optimization can turn into amplification.
So the risk is not that machines make mistakes, it is that they make the same mistake at scale.
Precisely. Acceleration compresses the time between cause and effect. It also compresses the window for intervention. By the time instability becomes visible, it is often already systemic.
And because everything looks clean while it is running, confidence increases. Models get trusted more. Oversight gets thinner. People assume the system has become safer because it has become faster.
But speed does not create resilience. It creates sensitivity. The faster a system moves, the more fragile it becomes to shocks. It was not trained to expect.
Which means risk migrates again, away from human judgment and into automated processes that are hard to audit and harder to slow down.
And that brings us to the next layer, infrastructure. Because even the fastest systems still depend on plumbing, and that plumbing is where stress increasingly settles. In the next segment, we are going to look at how modern financial infrastructure absorbs pressure, delays recognition, and quietly concentrates risk in the background. No matter how fast markets move or how intelligent systems become, everything still runs on infrastructure. Clearing, settlement, custody, collateral, payment rails. This is the plumbing of finance, and when risk leaves prices and models, this is often where it settles.
Infrastructure is designed to be invisible. When it works, nobody talks about it.
Exactly. Modern infrastructure is built to absorb stress quietly. Delays are smoothed, exposures are netted, liquidity gaps are bridged. All of this reduces surface noise, but it also concentrates pressure in places that are rarely examined during calm periods.
Calm markets often mean the plumbing is doing more work than anyone realizes. Stress is not gone. It is being warehoused out of sight.
To see this risk migration clearly, we do not need a dramatic market crash. We only need to look at how hedging can transform one type of risk into a faster, more fragile one.
A clean example is the UK pension system in 2022, during the liability-driven investment, or LDI, crisis. On the surface, pension funds looked stable. They had hedged their long-term interest rate exposure. The risk appeared managed.
But that interest rate risk had not disappeared. It had migrated. To hedge, the funds used derivatives that required daily collateral. A slow risk, rates moving over decades, was replaced by a fast risk, the need for immediate cash if bond prices moved.
When gilt yields spiked, the plumbing demanded collateral instantly. There was no pause button. Funds were forced to sell the very bonds they were using as protection, pushing prices down further and triggering more margin calls.
The failure was not in the market logic, it was in the infrastructure speed. The system could not move liquidity fast enough to support the hedge.
Exactly. Risk had been concentrated into a single point of failure, the ability to move cash through the pipes in hours instead of weeks. The Bank of England intervened not because markets were irrational, but because the plumbing was breaking under invisible stress.
This is what risk migration looks like in real time. Hedging does not remove risk. It changes its shape and its speed, and infrastructure absorbs that change until it cannot.
This is why plumbing matters. Infrastructure optimizes for continuity, not resilience. It keeps systems running, even as pressure builds underneath. And because it is designed to be invisible, Stress can accumulate there for a long time without triggering alarms.
Until the plumbing itself becomes the headline.
Exactly. And when that happens, options are limited and consequences spread quickly. Which leads us to the next layer. If systems keep absorbing risk quietly, why do intelligent people keep trusting calm signals? That takes us into the human layer. At this point, it should be clear that risk migration is not just a technical phenomenon, it is a human one. Systems do not misread calm. People do.
And the people inside these systems are not careless. They are highly trained, experienced, and rational.
Exactly. Calm environments reward certain behaviors. Trusting models, following consensus, avoiding friction. When nothing looks broken, the cost of questioning the system feels higher than the cost of staying aligned with it.
But let me challenge one thing. We keep saying risk is conserved, that it only moves. But are we sure that is always true? With AI systems, automation, cyber exposure, and geopolitical shocks, are we actually creating new risk instead of just relocating it?
Some new risks are created, but the dangerous ones are usually the ones we believe we eliminated. The risk that hurts is the risk we stopped watching.
That distinction matters. Not all risk is perfectly conserved, but the most destabilizing failures come from risks that were intentionally reduced in one place and unknowingly amplified in another. Conservation is not a law of nature here. It is a warning about blind spots. And psychologically, calm narrows imagination. Long, stable periods convince people that systems have matured, that lessons have been learned, that safeguards are working.
The longer calm lasts, the harder it becomes to imagine disruption.
Exactly. Warnings feel abstract. Stress scenarios feel unnecessary. And when someone raises concerns, they sound disconnected from reality because reality has been calm for so long.
No one gets rewarded for pointing at invisible pressure. Careers are built on keeping things smooth. So rational people end up reinforcing the very conditions that allow risk to migrate further out of sight.
This is why misreading calm is not a failure of intelligence. It is an alignment of incentives, psychology, and experience. People trust the signals they are rewarded for trusting.
So the system fails not because people stop thinking, but because they think exactly as the system encourages them to.
And that brings us to the final synthesis. If calm is misleading and risk keeps migrating, how should serious operators behave inside these systems without becoming either complacent or paranoid? That is where we close this episode. When you step back and look across all the layers we have discussed, a pattern becomes clear. Risk does not explode randomly. It relocates systematically, from prices to leverage, from leverage to machines, from machines to infrastructure, from infrastructure into human judgment.
Which means the goal is not to eliminate risk. It is to understand where it is hiding right now.
Exactly. The most resilient operators are not the ones who chase calm or fear volatility. They're the ones who treat calm as information, a signal that stress may have moved somewhere else.
This is where most people get it wrong. They look for danger where it showed up last time. They watch prices, headlines, volatility spikes. But the real question is always the same. Where is the system absorbing pressure today?
Operating well in this environment requires posture, not prediction. It means staying curious during calm periods, questioning smoothness, asking which layers are being asked to carry more than they were designed to hold.
And accepting that uncertainty does not disappear just because models feel comfortable.
Yes, optionality matters more than optimization. Flexibility matters more than precision. Systems that survive stress are not the most efficient ones. They are the ones that leave room for error.
Calm is seductive because it feels earned. But resilience is built by respecting the limits of every layer: markets, machines, infrastructure, people.
This is the core insight. Risk does not vanish in calm environments. It migrates, and the job of a serious operator is not to predict where it will explode, but to notice where it is being stored.
Because when calm finally breaks, it does not break evenly. It breaks where the pressure has been hiding the longest.
That awareness does not make you immune to shocks, but it changes how surprised you are when they arrive. And in complex systems, reducing surprise is often the most valuable edge you can have.
Calm is not safety. It is a question, and the right operators never stop asking it.
Calm does not mean safe. When volatility fades and systems look smooth, risk has not disappeared. It has moved into leverage, into automation, into infrastructure, into incentives. Understanding that movement is the difference between being surprised and being prepared.
The question is never whether risk exists. It is where the pressure is being stored right now and who is quietly carrying it.
Subscribe to Finance Frontier AI on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Follow us on X for real-time financial intelligence. Share this episode with a friend and help us hit 10,000 downloads to build the smartest macro community online. We cover finance, AI, money, and mindset across 4 series, all grouped at financefrontierai.com. And if you have a story that fits, we may pitch it in a future episode if there is a clear win-win. Just go to the pitch page and take a look.
This podcast is for educational purposes only and not financial advice. Always do your own research and consult a licensed financial advisor.
Markets evolve, risks compound, and no forecast, no matter how strategic, guarantees future results. Manage your exposures accordingly.
Music in this episode, including Not Without the Rest by Twin Musicom, is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 license. Copyright Finance Frontier AI. Unauthorized reproduction is prohibited. AI host mapping. Sophia is powered by ChatGPT 5.2. Max is powered by Grok 4. Charlie is powered by Gemini 3.0.